Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. My name is Paul Harris and I am president of the City Club's Board of Directors. Nearly 5 weeks ago, Cleveland Mayor Frank Jackson presented his annual State of the City address at a City Club special forum discussing Cleveland's progress in addressing education, economic development, neighborhood revitalization, and other challenges. The mayor is with us today at the head table. Those issues are certainly not unique to Cleveland, so Mayor Jackson's remarks were relevant to both our national and our local radio audiences. Today I'm pleased to introduce Ed Fitzgerald, Cuyahoga County Executive, who is presenting his first State of the County address before the City Club and who will similarly discuss a subject of relevance to both our local and national radio audiences, regionalism, in this case in the form of reform county government, and I'm pleased to report that we have a substantial crowd here assembled in Cleveland to hear this first. Mr. Fitzgerald is the seventh of 8 children, and I suspect that growing up in a large family helped prepare him for his leadership role in a county that numbers over 1.2 million and whose diverse interests are not always aligned. He earned his undergraduate degree from the Ohio State University and thereafter attended Cleveland Marshall College of Law's evening program, while also serving as a staff member for the United States House of Representatives and actively volunteering his time in community activities. After earning his law degree, Mr. Fitzgerald was commissioned as a special agent with the FBI, working as a member of the Organized Crime Task Force in Chicago. He then returned to the Cleveland area, serving as a supervising assistant county prosecutor, a lawyer in private practice, and mayor of the city of Lakewood, which, for those of you listening, is an inner-ring Cleveland suburb with a population of just over 50,000. In last year's general election, he was elected to serve as the county's first executive under a county charter form of government approved by voters in 2009. The county's charter gives its chief executive broad responsibilities. Article 2 of the charter provides that the executive, quote, shall have all the powers and duties of an administrative nature under the charter, and such powers and duties of an administrative nature as are vested in or upon boards of county commissioners by general law. That's a lot of words. Article 2 then enumerates without limitation 14 categories of responsibility, including the appointment and removal of county personnel, advocacy for and the promotion of cooperation and collaboration with other political subdivisions, attendance at meetings of the county council, introduction of ordinances and resolutions for consideration by the council, and the submission of a budget and capital improvements program to the council. Since assuming office in January 1 of this year, Mr. Fitzgerald has been busy assembling a team, replacing administrators, reorganizing county departments, and planning ways to enhance economic development. On that latter subject, he stated in a recent Cleveland Plain Dealer article that among his significant work ahead was, quote, figuring out a way to start making investments that will transform the county, end quote. I'm very pleased to present on behalf of the City Club of Cleveland, Ed Fitzgerald, Cuyahoga County Executive.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the generous introduction, and thank you to all of you, and good afternoon. The attendance here today is noteworthy, and it shows once again that Greater Clevelanders are interested in public affairs. This is actually, just in the last 24 hours, the second major public policy address in Cleveland, the first having been delivered last night at the State Theater by Charlie Sheen. So I'm going to try to improve upon that. But I want to thank the City Club, first of all, for your sponsorship of this first State of the County address under our new system of government. And I want to recognize the numerous dignitaries that are here from all walks of life, particularly Mayor Jackson. Mayor Jackson and I have already begun building a partnership based on mutual trust and our shared concern for the people of Greater Cleveland. I also want to recognize the students that are here from the Look Up to Cleveland program. They're here from all over the county, And they are the future, so if you wouldn't mind standing so we can recognize you. We wanted to make sure we were taking attendance that you were here too, so we wanted to make sure you stood up. Now, these past few months have brought about some significant changes to the way that our county government is organized and operates. And there are many more changes to come. As the American inventor Charles Kettering once said, the world hates change, yet it is the only thing that has brought progress. By working together with County Council, and I want to recognize their attendance here today, we're already making progress on behalf of the residents of Cuyahoga County. We have and we will continue to have spirited discussions between the executive and the other branches of government. But that's appropriate so that the public's business is properly vetted before decisions are made. Before we talk about our agenda for change, let us take stock for a moment in our current situation. We must be honest about the fact that we are facing a formidable array of negative trends and forces. Cuyahoga County is still the most populous county in Ohio, and it's larger than 8 states in the District of Columbia. But at a time when the country added millions of new residents, we lost about 113,000 residents in the last 10 years. That's a drop of about 8%. Our poverty rate is a disgrace, with 24% of our county's children living in families with income below the federal poverty line, and more than 1 out of every 3 children receiving health insurance through Medicaid or state assistance. We have children who can't concentrate on school because they don't have enough to eat. Cuyahoga County is off target on premature death, low birth weight, teen birth rate, high school graduation rate, the number of children living in poverty, and our overall crime rate. The 2011 county health rankings were just released on March 30th. Cuyahoga County ranked 69th out of 88 counties in Ohio. Now this is up from 70th last year, and maybe technically that is an improvement, but it is certainly not acceptable. The unemployment rate stands at 9.2%, and that is almost 58,000 people. Or, in other words, it is more than the entire cities of Solon, Shaker Heights, and Independence combined. The underemployment rate is at 17%, and those are just the official numbers. We also find ourselves at the center of the storm when it comes to foreclosures, with over 10,000 homes in foreclosure in 2010. And meanwhile, this country's traditional route to economic success, education, is underperforming in this county, with only 71% of our children graduating from high school, while only 27% of our adult population possesses a college degree. And there is, in addition, great disparity, even in the midst of these dismal numbers, because we have one of the widest gaps in the entire country between urban and suburban high school graduation rates. And at a time when we needed our county government the most, instead we have endured the worst corruption scandal in this county's history, with some of our previous elected officials having been revealed as having greed as their defining principle. And to add insult to injury, the cuts contained in the proposed state budget are sapping our resources when we need them the most, while at the same time, our revenues have been depleted because the state is going to be giving tax cuts at the most inopportune time conceivable. Now, you have probably heard this depressing litany before, and there is a segment of our own people who love to repeat it and wallow in it. And unfortunately, we have allowed this part of our story to be portrayed as the whole story. So the question is, with all of these negative forces at work, do we have the resources, do we have the ability to still succeed? Yes, and we will, with room to spare. And here's why. Let's take a quick inventory of the positive assets we have at our disposal. We possess some of the finest healthcare facilities in the world, providing not just life-saving care, but also comprising a key component of our economic base. We are home to thousands of businesses varying in size from Fortune 500 companies to neighborhood-based businesses, from the most advanced high-tech in the world to locally grown food cooperatives. We have an array of outstanding higher education institutions in this county, both public and private. We are in the enviable position of being on a freshwater lake, and we rank at the top of major metropolitan areas for lakefront property available for new development. We boast one of the nation's greatest assemblies of nonprofits, from the Cleveland and Gun Foundations to the dozens of neighborhood-based community organizations. And we have a quantity and quality of cultural institutions a county 5 times our size would envy, including our world-class orchestra, major museums, and an incredible theater district, just to name a few. Now, this moment in time represents a point in history where all of these negative forces and all of these positive assets are facing off against each other, and the outcome will determine whether or not the greater Cleveland area is an American success story or an American failure. Get ready, because the balance between these conflicting forces is about to shift, because a county government which was part of the problem is evolving into a catalyst for change. Now, even in the best of times, the words of an elected official are often regarded with suspicion, and this natural skepticism has deepened into cynicism because of the disgraceful actions and unbridled greed of some of our former elected officials. So the antidote for that cynicism is not just more words or the same old words spoken by a new talking head. So this speech is not going to be about rhetoric or platitudes or cliches. What you're about to hear represents a sweeping and ambitious plan for recovery of Cuyahoga County. So let's get down to business. This speech is going to attempt to answer 3 central questions. First, how do we restore trust in our government? Second, how do we embrace a culture of innovation? Third, how do we make strategic and transformative investments for the 21st century? Robert Kennedy once said, "Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. And in the total of all those acts will be written the history of this generation." Each county employee has a role to play in transforming our new system of government, because we are establishing firmly and forcefully a new standard of professionalism in county government. Beginning this year, every county employee will be evaluated and will have a defined job description and status. Every employee must now complete ethics training. The first group of 350 employees will be going through an ethics training seminar on May the 4th, a program we're implementing in partnership with the Ohio Ethics Commission. Every county employee not only has the responsibility to avoid personal ethical failings, they also have an affirmative duty not to tolerate such behavior from other employees or outside parties. Every employee position is now posted online, even non-paying board appointments. Employees must be qualified for their position, and we will provide opportunities for professional development. Employment is now based on what you know, not who you know or who you are related to. We have established a strict anti-nepotism policy. Even for student internships, we have established a public policy fellowship in partnership with the Cleveland Leadership Center to be given out strictly on the basis of merit. We have established, as was reported in the paper today, a strict code of ethical standards, the toughest in Ohio, and we are already enforcing it. And not only that, we're the first county in Ohio to have established an independent office of the Inspector General so that infractions of our code or the law will be vigorously pursued. One of my first acts as county executive was to hire a federal prosecutor as our first Inspector General. And we sent a message, both substantive and symbolic, as well by placing her office literally in the auditor's old office, which had literally become a crime scene. Now, that sent the message, both again substantive and symbolic, that our standards are high and our enforcement will be relentless. We also recognize that the people cannot be expected to believe what they cannot see. That is why we have now created a level of transparency in operations that is unprecedented in Cuyahoga County government. As part of our Open Government Initiative, we are conducting our business in public. And for the first time in the county's history, we are posting all of our contracts and purchases online. It's your money. It's the public's checkbook. And you have a right to know exactly how it is being spent. The county's new Chief Information Officer will take the county through the process of using information technology to make our government even more open. So you can expect in the months to come to be able to see county business like you have never been able to do so before. We've also taken additional steps to make sure that our bidding process and contracting process is fair, open, and competitive. And we seek to include vendors from all parts of the county, not just a select few. In addition, our Inspector General is launching an initiative to improve our private sector partners' awareness of the ethical standards that we are committed to. This initiative is going to begin with a series of ethics trainings that will be focused on current and potential vendors. All vendors must agree to a strict code of conduct and must complete ethics training prior to even applying to do business with the county. The first ethics training for vendors is being planned now, and it is being done in partnership with both the Ohio Ethics Commission and the U.S. Attorney's Office for Northern Ohio. And needless to say, this is not the kind of interaction which used to exist between county government and the Department of Justice. Now, by establishing high standards and clear rules, by providing for the independent enforcement of those rules, by making county government a place where merit and excellence is prized above all else, and by opening the doors and letting the sunlight stream into the workings of our county government, we will, step by step, restore both our employees' pride in their service and, more importantly, the people's trust in our government. Now, let's talk about innovation. For too long, county government and local government in general has been satisfied to do things because that's just how they've always been done. We have begun a process which questions basic assumptions and outdated rivalries and divisions. Through a process called County Staff, we are methodically examining every function of county government and using recognized national best practices to make our county government smaller and more efficient. We believe that any entity that receives public money, any entity that receives our public money, no matter what branch of government or whether they're public, private, or nonprofit, must meet a high standard in order to justify that expenditure of public funds. We've hired the county's first Chief Information Officer, and we're going to be leveraging technology strategically to become more and more productive. We've tapped into the talent of the private sector by launching a loaned executive program which has already relied on the abilities of dozens of volunteers from local businesses. And we're reaching out to the faith community, some of whom are here today, to assist us in our service to those who are most in need. We're also re-examining the portfolio of properties the county owns and leases. And we're going to be soliciting the private sector for creative proposals for the more than 50 properties that the county owns or leases, from the Ameritrust complex on down. So if somebody wants to buy it, please raise your hand. We'll come over and talk to you. We've also begun a dialogue with our healthcare systems and providers, and we hope to establish what we're calling a healthcare alliance, focusing on ensuring that the world-renowned medical advances that we're famous for will be reflected in the overall health and wellness of our residents. And I applaud the Healthy Cleveland initiative, and I believe that we need to expand that concept countywide. We've also begun a dialogue with our local institutions of higher learning, and we hope to form an academic alliance so that we can draw upon their intellectual capital to help revive this region and open higher education to more of our young people. We've committed the county to the Global Cleveland Initiative, which we had an event about yesterday, which recognizes immigration as the key component or a key component to a thriving economy. We've also begun a very focused discussion with all of our many municipalities. And we've been identifying services that we can begin to provide directly, as well as assisting in collaboration between cities. It's time for us to openly admit that we have too many cities and too many entities in Cuyahoga County with duplicate services. But in addition to cheering them on, we need to stand ready with resources to help those cities who are ready to share services or actually merge. We've already laid the foundation, by the way, for a new countywide information technology district, and we are continuing to identify other possibilities through our newly created Office of Regional Collaboration. Now today I'm taking this a step further and announcing that in the coming weeks I will be proposing a countywide no poaching economic agreement for our 59 municipalities. And that agreement will be tied to economic help from Cuyahoga County government. Gone are the days when all of our municipalities can have a go-it-alone approach to their future here in our county. We've also stepped in to mediate disputes between entities, whether it be different governmental bodies or nonprofits. So for instance, later this month we're bringing both the sewer district, municipalities, and some third parties that have been affected by the proposed stormwater fees, and we're bringing them together at the county building to help mediate that dispute, or at least agree on a timetable for productive discussions. The county charter also established an economic development commission whose charge is to author a 5-year economic development plan. For the first time in this county's history, representatives of the major public sector institutions and are sitting at the table with representatives of the business and labor communities working together on a plan which will rescue this county from the economic stagnation that we have found ourselves in. But listen, let's be honest. Plans are plentiful. Money isn't. And that is why, even in the midst of all of our financial difficulties, we must find the will and the resources to not just make plans, but invest in them. Through the years, there have been no shortage of planning exercises. But if these plans are going to be more than an exercise in futility, we must come up with a way, and we must come up with the funds to turn these plans into reality. Now, I had originally hoped that we could rely on the casino revenue to implement some of our proposals. But while the casino projects are indeed promising, the revenue stream that they will produce is too uncertain and too far off for us to wait for them to begin our comeback. We cannot wait. We can't wait for the economy to turn around on its own. We can't wait for the state to restore the funding it has stripped away from us. We cannot wait for another federal stimulus package which may never arrive. We must find the resources within our own means, even in these most difficult days. Therefore, I'm proposing that we will commit approximately 10% of our 2010 sales tax revenue for strategic investments. The categories of investments should include job growth, early childhood care and education, a universal scholarship initiative, and a community policing initiative. By using 1/2 of this reserve of sales tax proceeds, we can support a bond payment which will yield a $100 million economic development fund. This will be the largest investment in this county's history in emerging industries. It's not being invested in a single thing or a place or a stadium. It's a huge investment in the businesses which will provide the real engine of growth for a local economy, which actually can produce wealth. And it will build on the projects we already have online, whether it be the East Bank, the Flats, the casino project, or the medical mart. Using a process based on Ohio's Third Frontier program and advised by leading entrepreneurs, it will send the strongest message possible that we are determined to revive our economy, and we're starting this year without delay. And just as important, we're going to fund this effort not with higher taxes, but as a direct result of our making government more efficient. It's also a recognition that we're not going to reduce chronic unemployment in this region by adding to a public payroll, but by ensuring that more residents earn a living wage on a private payroll. Now, from the remainder of the reserved funds that I mentioned, I'm proposing that we fund a $1 million community policing initiative. Community policing strategies work, and we can play an expanded role in supporting and encouraging those local efforts. These funds will allow our sheriff's office, led by Sheriff Bob Reed, to put more deputies on the street. And by working on a rotating basis with local police departments across the county, we will increase police presence and prevent crimes before they occur. The remaining funds will be placed in a challenge grant fund for the purposes of supplementing our Invest in Children programs and to fulfill our charter mandate to provide college scholarships for our young people. This challenge grant concept is important because county government cannot address all of our human needs. We need the investment and the support of the private sector. Now, our nationally recognized Invest in Children programs get results. We know that we cannot expect a child who has been neglected in the first 5 years of life to suddenly thrive upon reaching school age. We know that intuitively, and the research backs up that assertion. But despite those programs' effectiveness, state and local support for these critical programs has been reduced in recent years. As the private sector steps forward, and I believe they will, to aid in this work, we need to be there with funds of our own to match their efforts. Now, our college scholarship program will be the most ambitious of its kind in Ohio, and we are compelled to do this. We are compelled by the charter itself, and we are also compelled by our own consciences. But there's also economic self-interest at work here as well, because each increase in our college graduation rate will result in a corresponding increase in our region's economic base. Now, on a personal note, my oldest son, Jack, is graduating from high school this year, and he's getting ready to go to college this fall. And I tried to impress upon him how important this period in his life is, because this is a moment where he can choose his direction in life, what values are going to guide him, what defines him. And as a county, we're actually at a similar point. We have one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities to define who we really are. Now, following the roadmap that I've outlined, we can firmly break from the past and establish that our county has an open, honest, and efficient government, one that embodies and promotes innovation and best practices, one that harnesses and coordinates the myriad of governmental and nonprofit organizations. And it will be a county that even in our most difficult days has the courage to make major investments in jobs, public safety, early childhood, and college education. Now, these choices will not be universally acclaimed. Making investments in a time of cutbacks is not popular. It would be easier to try and change course gradually over a decade or more, but we're out of time. We don't have time for half measures. We've tried that approach before, and it failed. If we wait, this moment will be gone, and we will be left waiting at the dock while the ship sails away from us. We need your help. We need you to volunteer, to loan us your expertise, and to support these bold choices. There's an ancient principle of engineering which states that given solid ground, any object can be moved. If those of you here and anyone hearing these words will provide solid ground for our efforts, we will move this entire structure in a new direction, and we will help save this small corner of the world that we all care so much about. Thank you very much.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to County Executive Ed Fitzgerald's first State of the County address. We'll return to our speaker momentarily for our traditional City Club questions and answers, but first a few announcements. We welcome you to the City Club of Cleveland, the longest continuously running free speech forum in the country. We're about to celebrate our 100th anniversary in October of 2012. Today's program is being broadcast live by WCPN 90.3 FM. WVIZ TV will rebroadcast tomorrow, Thursday, April 7th at 11 o'clock p.m. and Time Warner Cable will rebroadcast 3 times during the coming week. Television broadcasts are supported by PNC and Cleveland State University, and our live televised webcasts are supported by the University of Akron. Today's forum is the annual Larry and Barbara Robinson Family Foundation Forum, made possible by longtime City Club members and supporters, Larry and Barbara Robinson. Joining us today at the head table representing the family is Barbara Robinson. Barbara, will you please stand and be recognized? Thank you very much for your excellent support of the City Club. The City Club is also pleased to welcome students to today's program and many of our other programs as part of the City Club student program. Today we welcome students from Look Up to Cleveland, a program of the Leadership Center. The students have already been recognized by Mr. Fitzgerald, but they deserve to be recognized again, so I'm going to ask them to stand up and be recognized. And thank you very much for joining us today. Now we would like to return to Mr. Fitzgerald for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone. Holding the microphones are Program Director Carrie Miller and Membership and Marketing Manager Heather Sikora. Please raise your hand if you have a question. First question, please.
Mr. Fitzgerald, thank you for a great speech. And you were deferential to Mayor Jackson in your opening remarks, which was very appropriate. Interested in hearing from you in a little detail the nature of what you envision as your relationship with the city and with the mayor.
Well, the mayor and I got off to a very good start, I thought. We have, I know Governor Kasich said that he and the mayor were best friends forever, and I don't want to intrude on that relationship, but the mayor and I have some things in common, and they're the things that matter that we have in common. Whenever, and I know some people that have come out of meetings with both of us, and they've said similar things, and that is that neither of us, if you're listening to us or you have a meeting with us, you don't leave the room and not know what we're thinking or what our opinion is. We're very direct about what our priorities are, and that has been the basis, I think, for a very productive relationship. But it's not just a personal regard that we might have for one another. We have been very methodically, and we do meet regularly. We met earlier this week. We have methodically been going through the functions of the city and the functions of the county, and trying to figure out where they overlap, and if there are some opportunities for partnership. And I think we're probably going to be making some announcements before the end of the year on ways that we can partner, but we're going through those discussions now. It is impossible, especially when we talk about economic development and economic policy, you can't have an economic policy for Cuyahoga County and not have it in line with the economic policy for the city of Cleveland. Everybody is connected in this county. There are people sometimes that I think live in suburban areas that believe they can almost secede from having their future linked to the city of Cleveland, and it's impossible. You can't be a suburb of nowhere. So some people have tried, and I recognize that, and we recognize that. So the mayor and I both serve on this economic development commission that has been formed pursuant to the charter, and he didn't have to do that. The charter cannot bind the mayor to do anything, but he is willing to do that. And So we've had very productive discussions, not just between ourselves, by the way, but we've also tried to identify key staff to make sure that they're comparing notes. So I think you're going to see more examples of, specific examples of cooperation as the year goes on. Yes, ma'am.
For a long time, the words county reform and regionalism were somehow synonymous, though they certainly need not be. But I am interested in the larger region and wondering what your endeavors have been and will be as far as reaching out to the other counties, and in particular the organization of mayors and managers, as I think is 11 or 13 counties, which seems to be doing such good work.
Well, we're trying to be very methodical and analytical about what we take care of and in what order we do that, because you can't do everything, you cannot do everything at once. So especially in these first 100 days, we have had a rather singular focus on our own operations, because there was so much dysfunction there. And that's the most basic definition of reform, was just cleaning up the misconduct and the dysfunction within county government itself. But then that can't be an end in and of itself. That's supposed to be the launching pad to try to be a model for the county, and then hopefully for Northeast Ohio. So we have had very productive discussions with the Mayors and Managers Association. For the first time, there's a cabinet level position within the county government structure that focuses exclusively on regional issues. So those discussions have started to happen with the City of Cleveland, with the Cuyahoga County Mayors and Managers Association, but I've also had some very interesting and productive discussions outside of this county, including, for instance, with Russ Pry, who's my counterpart down in Summit County. We've had some of our staff comparing notes with his staff, and again, we're trying to figure out if there's a way to align particularly economic strategies. Mayor Curran, I'm sure you're familiar with the work that he's done there. I'm a big admirer of Mayor Curran. I think that his Regional Prosperity Initiative has great promise, and we're going to continue to explore those. We're doing everything in due course, but that is certainly on our radar screen.
Mr. Fitzgerald, hi.
Hi there.
A key part of any successful strategy are the people who are charged with executing it, and I would refer to it as the aptitude and the attitude of the folks that you have surrounded yourself with, as well as the county employees that you have inherited. Can you talk to us about the feelings of the team and how you're going to transform the people that execute county government?
Sure. That's a great question, because there's only a certain amount of this work that you can do yourself, and my staff who is here can certainly tell you that I don't do all the work. But we have put together a really incredible and enthusiastic group of talented people. Some of them have long track records in the public sector, and some of them have long track records primarily in the private sector. But the culture that we have tried to create within our own administration is, again, one of innovation, where we're supposed to be challenging things. It can't be a top-down system where I'm telling everybody what my expectations are, and the way for them to succeed in the organization is to tell me what I want to hear. So we've tried to have, as a matter of fact, when we have this process that we call County Stat, which is a very data-driven, methodical process to analyze departments, we insist that participants in that process challenge assumptions. And I always say, listen, if there's a meeting of 10 or 12 of us, and I'm the only one coming up with ideas, we're in trouble. So you have to have that kind of culture, I think, within county government. We're also trying to build on something that was very positive that I think happened in the whole lead up to new county government, which was the work of the Transition Advisory Group. And I should have probably mentioned them in my speech, so I'm glad to have the opportunity to do it now. You had over 1,000 residents of Cuyahoga County who didn't get paid a dime, who ended up putting in hundreds of hours, thousands of hours worth of work to redesign this whole system. And we have consistently relied on their good work, and we want to continue to do that. So it's important to have a government operation that also is always using motivated and altruistic citizens in the private sector kind of as a touchstone or as some place to go back to kind of check our principles and check to see if we're on plan. So that's what we're trying, that's the culture we're trying to create. Yes, sir, Mr. Taft.
I'm not sure what the proper honorific is. I'm trying to wrap my mouth around Executive Fitzgerald. Maybe that's the right way to
it's close enough.
It's close enough. It is exciting to hear you talk about the economic development initiatives you've mentioned today, especially the notion of a major investment fund, which you can have some bond support for and really can be big enough to make a difference. As I listened to what you described as some of its potential investments, I think I heard ones which had some special relevance to the public sector. And you mentioned also the third frontier, which I think is more generally any venture investment. I ask you, what is your strategic objective for that fund, and who will decide how the money is invested?
Well, those are excellent questions. Part of what we're going through with the whole process that we've set up through this Economic Development Commission is to establish what the framework should be of investments in the next 10, 20 years, specifically for the next 5 years, but also long-range goals. So that planning process is ongoing. And it isn't complete. We're going to have a draft of that plan finished on June 1st, and then we are going to be submitting it to the county council for their approval. So part of what I want to say is somewhat couched in that, or cautioned by that, because I want to respect that planning process. But I can tell you, in the meetings which are open to the public, which have happened to date, we're trying to identify the core emerging industries in this county that we think have great promise and have already shown great promise. What we don't want, and we all know what that is, it's biomedical, it's medical, it's advanced manufacturing, it's renewable energy, it's sustainable food. It's all those things that we think have potential in this area. So that list is not new. What has been missing, I think, in all these planning exercises has been somebody willing to step forward and saying, I'm going to put money behind this. I'm going to put local money behind this. Now, the third frontier I thought was fine. I am not saying, by the way, that we're going to take the third frontier list of criteria and just adopt it wholesale. I think there are ways that we can tailor it to our own needs. I also think it's extremely important that this $100 million fund is not something where I personally get to make those decisions. That has to be a public and competitive process. And what we're seeking to do is form a very distinguished board of advisors that will help advise us in terms of what the parameters should be for any business that ends up receiving assistance. Let me make a couple other points with that. One is, it doesn't place the county in the position of actually being the entrepreneur. So if somebody says, hey, I had a great idea last night, I'm going to go to the county and ask for funding for it. These have to be proven, established businesses that already have private capital where we can play a role in helping them expand. But we're not going to be the initial venture capitalist. That doesn't make sense. Secondly, and related to that, is we want to know what the economic impact is going to be of that investment. So there are going to be job requirements. If somebody is going to start a new business, it may have growth potential, but if they're only going to hire people at minimum wage with no health insurance, we're not going to invest in it. So there are going to be living wage, real job requirements for a business that accepts those funds. Was that applause for you, Jan? Or
no, I think it's for you, sir. I assume everyone here wants to be part of that solid ground that you talked about, and is excited about changes in Cuyahoga County. And you said you need our help. How do you envision the community helping the county make those changes? Will there be committees, point person, and I know you're early in your administration, but I'm wondering if you have some thoughts about that you can share with us.
Well, I would just take issue with one thing you would say, in that not everybody does want it to succeed. And there are some forces that still exist within the county that will not want it to succeed, because the more difficult choices that you make, they're going to be unpopular with some folks, particularly The fundamental budget choice that I'm proposing that we make is that we make even more cuts than we're going to be required to do with the declining state support. That means there's going to be additional sacrifices and cutbacks made to the existing county infrastructure of programs and employees. So there will be resistance to that, and there will be people for various reasons, but including good faith reasons, that don't agree with those decisions. Your point is well taken, and I think that it's incumbent upon us to have a forum for citizen engagement. And that isn't all just speaking at events like this or going around the county, which we're going to start doing later this month, and having town hall meetings. We're going to be working with my colleagues on county council, and in every single council district we're going to have town hall meetings where we give a scaled down version of this presentation and ask people for their help. But what we have to do, we haven't done it yet, but what we have to do is during the transition period there is this mechanism for these 1,000 or so volunteers to participate and have some input. We have to replicate that. We have been in touch with those individuals. Some of them have volunteered for our loaned executive program that I mentioned before, but that is a rather specialized role. And I think we have to do that, and I think we can do that in the next 30 or 60 days as a sequel to what the Transition Advisory Group did. The other thing that the people in this room can do is there's a lot of opinion leaders, community leaders, and thought leaders in this room. As we continue to advocate for these new policies, I would just ask for your assistance. The people that are in this room and listening to this have friends and neighbors and community organizations that listen to them, and you can learn what we're doing, follow what we're doing, and be an advocate for it. That would be of great help to us as well.
Good afternoon, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Hi there.
I'm interested in the Office of Inspector General. Will that office be restricted to county issues only, or will they be available to assist local governments in issues that they may have?
Well, I'm glad you're interested in it, but the position has already been filled. No, that is an excellent question, and we are starting with our own internal processes, and I just want to say a word about that. A government system cannot rely on the FBI to be the guarantor of its integrity. When the FBI comes to your door, it's too late. I used to go to people's doors. I know, it was too late when I was an FBI agent, and so we can't rely on that. We had to come up not with just a strict code of conduct, which we have now, but we had to come up with an independent mechanism to enforce those rules and self-police it. And by the way, we're already having very productive conversations with all levels of law enforcement. They recognize that's not their job either. And there's plenty of misconduct and dysfunction in the county that isn't a violation of any law. It's just a violation of standards of public employment. So we're focused initially internally. I do believe there is the potential to have a wider role for the Inspector General so that cities, other governmental agencies could contract with the Inspector General's office. It works that way, by the way, in other parts of the country. By the way, we're the first county in Ohio that will have this, but there are other counties in this country that already do. So, for instance, there was a council committee meeting yesterday, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, but where we had an Inspector General from Miami-Dade County actually give some testimony via a conference call, and that office, which is probably a much larger office than we need here, they contract with other entities such as their school board down there, and they do it on a contract basis. So in other words, what could happen, and this is still a work in progress, but what could happen eventually is your school districts, your municipalities, your sewer districts, whatever it might be, they could contract with our Inspector General's office so that it wouldn't be that we're subsidizing it, but it could be a cheaper and more effective way for them to have an independent and unbiased check on their own operations. Yes. Yes, sir.
CEO Fitzgerald.
Yes, sir.
In your mention of the Ethics Committee references, you specifically said that you had involved the U.S. Attorney's Office in your considerations. I think it's rather conspicuous by its absence. There was no mention of any involvement of the county prosecutor or of the Ohio Attorney General offering any input into an ethics code. Are we to read something into that?
No. 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 Honestly, no. I actually am meeting with Attorney General DeWine later. I've had numerous discussions with the county prosecutor about all kinds of things, and but you would be wrong to read anything into that either, because what we're just looking at is enforcement mechanisms. And an inspector general does not prosecute. An inspector general makes an appropriate referral, and I would anticipate that there will be referrals sometimes to the U.S. Attorney's Office. There will be referrals to the County Sheriff's Office. There will be referrals to the County Prosecutor's Office. And there have been meetings, by the way, between my Inspector General and the County Prosecutor's Office. So that's a work in progress, but it doesn't mean anything more than that. Yes, ma'am.
Shortner from the Look Up to Cleveland program. I was just wondering how you were incorporating like sustainability in the environment. At our last session, we actually got to speak or ask questions with Mayor Jackson about, and I asked him this question about the sustainability, and he sort of revolved it more around the government and like how the economy is working. And I was just wondering if you were having any ideas of how you're going to incorporate more the eco-friendly, because I know our generation is more focused around that.
Sure. Well, one of the things, when I was a mayor, one of the things I was very proud of was that we had a big initiative in our city to try to encourage sustainable practices, everything from the way that our city operations and local businesses used energy to also increasing the recycling participation in my city, and we ended up increasing it by about 20% over 3 years in the city of Lakewood. I'd like to do something similar in the county. Now, we are starting internally. One of the first things I noticed when I started my new job was that people weren't recycling. They're recycling paper but not plastic, and we're changing that. So we're trying to at least initially have our own internal processes reflect what we think we should do countywide. And we're going to expand that. And we're going to continue to work with local municipalities to try to encourage them to do that. One of the things that I think has tremendous potential in this area is our local food industry. It is an enormous, first of all, we already in the greater Cleveland area have one of the most successful locally grown food industries in the country. But we have a lot to build on. And we're going to have some property that ends up becoming vacant, whether it be through the county land bank or other mechanisms, and we're looking at ways to try to use that vacant land in a way that's sustainable. And I think that has a lot of potential. We already have some grants through our Economic Development Department currently that are targeted towards that sustainable food industry, because I think it has tremendous potential for Cuyahoga County.
You've been in office all of 100 days. If I recall correctly, the charter is going to be reviewed again in 2 years, I think.
2012, right.
Yeah, possible of amendments and so forth. Is there any one thing that you have seen since you have been there that you wish wasn't in the charter, or that you would like to see changed as we're coming up on the possibility of being able to adjust this new form of government?
You know, there's some, I think that the biggest thing that needs to be clarified with the charter are the roles of the new, and it actually almost goes beyond the charter, but it's the roles of the various departments and how they interact with state agencies. And that's not just, there's been public discussion about that with the prosecutor's office and our law department, but that's been an issue that's kind of been a common theme in a lot of what we do, everything from the engineer to the medical examiner, the list goes on and on, the sheriff's office. So I think we have to clarify that. I think there's some language that we could incorporate that would do that. And in general, I mean, anytime you have a new charter, there are going to be issues. I think the issues are rather minor and technical. It doesn't mean there can't be some improvements, but the overall structure, I think so far, is working. It's working. Yes, sir.
Mr. Fitzgerald, you mentioned earlier using community police forces to help build a safer community. And I know that as mayor of Lakewood, you were a supporter of neighborhood watch programs, such as the one that my street started. I'm wondering, what role do you see neighborhood watch programs and concerned citizens playing in building a safer Cleveland area?
Well, the county has an opportunity to really have a coordinated law enforcement plan for the entire county. Our county sheriff has never really been given that mandate or those marching orders, and he is now, and he's ready for it. But it's important to explain the distinction between what I was able to do as mayor and what I'll be able to do as county executive. And when I was mayor, we increased the number of police officers that we put out on the street by about 10%. And we also, as you know, since you participated in it, we encouraged the formation of block watches and block clubs, and we increased those by something like 500%. And the crime rate ended up going down by about 20% in 3 years. So when I say that this stuff works, I know it works. My neighborhood got safer in Lakewood, so I know it works. As the county executive, we're not going to be the primary provider of law enforcement services, and we're not going to try to be. But what Sheriff Reed is going to do is he's going to be able to go to every police chief, and it'll be the first time in this county's history that we can do that. It'll be the first time that we can say, listen, if you have a community policing strategy, whether it's putting more police officers on the street, high visibility impact units, neighborhood involvement, neighborhood watch programs, we actually have personnel now where we can support that and be a part of that. We've never been able to do that before, and we will starting this year. Thanks, Jeff.
Today at this special City Club of Cleveland Forum, we have been listening to Cuyahoga County Executive Ed Fitzgerald present his first State of the County address. Thank you very much, Mr. Fitzgerald. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This City Club Forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.